Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our next matchup for UFC 322. In this one, we have our featured prelim as Bo Nickal takes on Rodolfo Vieira. Nickal is 7-1 as a pro, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Meanwhile, Vieira is 11-3 as a pro, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. So in this clash, we got definitely a compelling narrative. Two absolute grappling beasts with distinctly different pedigrees and trajectories meeting at a crossroads. For Bo Nickal, it's no secret who he is. Is he the American wrestling phenom who's transitioned MMA with lightning speed? While you got Rodolfo Vieira, a Brazilian submission machine whose jiu-jitsu credentials read kind of like the who's of combat sports. The question is for this fight isn't just who wins, but which style asserts itself under pressure. Now, also a big thing is for Bo Nickal, he's coming off the first loss of his career, losing to Renier de Ridder this May. But, it's Renier de Ridder. He's really good, and I do think that fight was a bit too much too soon. Meanwhile, for Vieira, he's coming off a win over Treshawn Gore, where his striking has definitely looked improved since his time in the UFC. But I am very, very much looking forward to this matchup once they hit the mat. Because when it comes to two grappling specialists like these two, but of different pedigrees, like I just mentioned, it really becomes an interesting nuance of wrestling, once again, a wrestler versus grappler matchup. So looking at Bo Nickal, well, he brings into the cage an athletic base that few can really match, especially even with his build at 6'1". His background is one of dominance in wrestling, multiple-time ACAA championship, elite folk wrestling, and freestyle credentials, and that wrestling foundation gives him an immediate advantage in MMA. Takedown, timing, control of position, and the ability to dictate when and where the fight goes. Early in his MMA career, he has exploded out of the great heights with first-round finishes, transitions, submissions, knockouts. Didn't really matter. Knocking out like Val Woodburn, submitting Jamie Pickett, for example. What's key about Nickal is how his wrestling has evolved into MMA useful grappling. He's not just taking an opponent down, but you've seen him threaten with submissions, use ground and pound, and change from takedowns to dominance. In his fight with Jamie Pickett, for example, he locked in a finish via submission by round 1 by mixing his wrestling base with good jiu-jitsu base top control. Now, he didn't do the perfect technique for the arm triangle, but you could see as he improves throughout his career, his jiu-jitsu will blend into his wrestling much better. Now, the flip side of that is, the flip side of Nickal's game is still visible. His striking is not his strongest domain compared to elite strikers, and his ground game, while improving, still carries the young MMA guy wrinkles. Transitions can be slower than a pure submission artist like Rodolfo Vieira, and his durability under elite submission pressure remains a question. Like I said, recently suffering the first loss of his career by TKO, those knees to the body that Renier loves to use, which serves as a reminder that while he's marketed as elite, he's still being tested. Now, looking at Rodolfo Vieira, a bit smaller for the division at 6 foot, but he uses his frame very well, even with the 73-inch reach, and enters with one of the most decorated jiu-jitsu resumes in modern combat sports. He's a multiple-time BJJ world champion, ADC champion, and his nickname is the Black Belt Hunter for a very good reason. In MMA, Vieira's grappling is his bread and butter, and his finishing rate by submission is overwhelming. 9 of his 11 wins do come by submission. He uses his top control with devastating efficiency, passing guard pretty quickly, and securing dominant positions and draining his opponents just physically and mentally until they make a mistake. His striking, meanwhile, has often been the supporting cast, good enough to set up entries, but not yet elite standing combat levels. He's even said openly in an interview he considers himself a white belt in MMA, which I find kind of intriguing and pretty humbling from a guy who's one of the best grapplers in the division. Now, his vulnerabilities lie in how he handles elite wrestlers and how he deals with sustained pressure outside of his comfort zone. And against opponents who can't deny takedowns, make the fight upright, or keep him pinned in scrambles, Vieira sometimes struggles to impose his usual rhythm. You saw with, for example, Anthony Hernandez, who was able to out scramble Vieira in positions and overall had the better cardio and pressure. Eventually caught Vieira in his own submission. Or Chris Curtis, who has stout takedown defense, was able to deny all of Vieira's takedowns. And then Armin Petrosian was able to deny all of Vieira's takedowns and basically win a kickboxing match. Now, you see there are improvements, as Vieira's striking has at least improved enough to deal with Tresean Gore, for example, after Gore was able to handle all of Vieira's takedowns, or stuff all of them anyway. So there is improvement for Vieira, but like Nickal, their striking is still developing. But I do think Vieira might be the better striker. Now, when Nickal and Vieira fight on Saturday, what unfolds is really honestly a nuanced battle of grappling dominance, control of position, and transition. For Nickal, he'll want to use his wrestling to his advantage, take Vieira down when he chooses, keep him there, and threaten submissions or ground and pound, and avoid giving Vieira the kind of luxury he thrives in, long guard exchanges or submission scramblings with resets. On the side of Vieira, Vieira will want to bring the fight into his world, clinch or takedowns on his terms, transition to dominant top control, pass guard, lock in submissions. He's going to aim to muzzle Nickal's wrestling advantage by using his jiu-jitsu to frustrate takedowns, scramble effectively, and force resets, and turn ground exchanges into submission hunts. The crucial segment about this fight, absolutely crucial in terms of like how I break this fight down, is how will Nickal handle the times he's going to be on his back. Vieira's expertise, is very good at attacking precisely from top position, specifically his arm triangle from out, like the one he got over Armin Petrosian. If Nickal lands a takedown and keeps top control, he gains the advantage. If Vieira defends well and turns the position into submission territory, the fight is going to tilt his way. In striking and standing phases, Nickal may slightly hold a slight edge simply due to athleticism and wrestling-based distance control. And he can close the gap, create leverage, and initiate takedown attempts rather than wait. Being usually from a wrestling background, usually the wrestler is the better athlete. Or at least they have that explosion that comes with shooting takedowns. So if we're talking about athletic striking, I do think Nickal will be better. But I think in technique-wise, Vieira is going to be better. The middle rounds are especially important, though. If Nickal starts fast, take Vieira down early, and maintains dominance, I think the fight becomes his. And like conversely, if Vieira survives early takedown attempts, slow the fight, and drag Nickal into longer grappling sequences and threatening submissions, I think his advantage starts to grow. Given both men's grappling orientation, I think the fight comes down to takedown sequences, transition, and moments of heavy top control. And the difference will come down to which fighter imposes their preferred plan of combat. Or, we could get Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig, where Nickal mostly just fought a lackluster boxing match. That does tend to happen when you have two elite strikers. They usually don't want to see who truly is the better, grapplers, as they usually don't want to see who's the better grappler of the two, as sort of a pride thing. And because they think that they're going to be the better striker. So while I'm saying how interesting and nuanced it is on the ground, there is a very strong possibility that this fight does not hit the mat, or at least one of them is able to defend the other's takedowns, and we mostly get a striking match. Now, that being said, I got to lean towards Bo Nickal. Firstly, his wrestling base gives him the initiative. He controls when the takedowns happen, can dictate where the fight goes, and has shown submission abilities in his MMA grappling has matured. Secondly, while Vieira is dangerous and might appear to have the submission edge, Nickal's improving ground game and athleticism give him more room to survive and reverse exchanges. He's not going to just scramble. He specializes in controlling positions, and which can neutralize some of Vieira's best pathways to victory. Thirdly, stylistically, I think a matchup like this kind of favors Nickal. Provided he executes, the fight does favor the guy who can impose wrestling, avoid getting caught in Vieira's most dangerous positions, and prevent the fight becoming a long submission hunt from his back. If Nickal can keep top control, transition cleanly, and either finish or outwork Vieira on the mat, then he has multiple paths for victory for me. So my prediction, I'm going to go with Bo Nickal in this one, likely by decision after dominant positions, or maybe submission. I mean, Vieira's been submitted before. He got submitted by Fluffy. Though, granted, I think Fluffy is obviously a better submission artist than Nickal. But I don't know. Submission is not out of the realm of possibilities for Nickal. He's improving his submission game. You've seen it. Most of his wins have come by submission, too. So it's not crazy to think that while these two are scrambling and Nickal gets dominant position, he could maybe take the back and submit Vieira with a rear naked choke. But, and as for like the possibility of TKO, that's another possibility. Maybe Nickal hurts him early on the feet. Like I said, he does have some powerful hands and very explosive. But through all in all, I'm going to pick Bo Nickal, like I said. And I am going to lean towards probably a decision in this one or submission. Those are kind of the ones I'm leaning towards. Decisions are more likely for me. But with that being said, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe. Also, put down in the comments below on who you think will win this matchup and how. But until then, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see you all next time.